Welcome to Family Caregiver Support Program Weekly Education Training Program. This week's presentation is on caregiving and technology, and presented by me, Michelle McGuire. The Family Caregiver Support Program team consists of our program manager, Amy Blackburn, my colleague, Olga Yamawaki, who's also a case manager, and myself, also a case manager. The Family Caregiver Support Program is housed within St. Barnabas Senior Services Center and is sponsored by the City of Los Angeles Department of Aging. Our program provides support for family caregivers in the form of respite relief, assistance with emergency needs such as food, supplies, or rent, and support through education and training. For today's presentation, again, I'm looking at technology and caregiving with a little focus on emerging interventions that are coming out in the technological marketplace as we speak. I'm going to start with some common technology that is in use that most people know about, but just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page here, and be patient with me if this is redundant. I'm going to start with computers. There's two primary types, desktop and a laptop. You can see here is a woman on a desktop. This computer is designed to sit on top of a table or a desk and not be moved. It's stationary. Laptop, as the name says, it's designed to sit in your lap or on a portable surface, table, whatever. It's designed to be portable, has the same functions as a desktop. It's just that you can move it around. And here's a photo of one here. You could just close that lid and take off with it. The smartphone, that's basically what most of us use. It's kind of like a handheld computer and a phone in one. And as we're going to see as we go through a lot of the different types of technology, Apple, the company Apple, likes to differentiate themselves from the rest of the marketplace and have their own types of products, meaning they use their own platforms, their own networking, their own software that's proprietary, and they are set aside from the common technological operating systems to some degree. For example, with the phones, Apple has an iPhone. Everyone else uses what's called an Android, and those are because they're different operating systems, the iPhone and the Android. So I'm talking to everyone else. Samsung, Verizon, AT&T, most of the major phone carriers will use the Android. Apple uses iPhone only. And again, you'll see that Apple has their own products as we go through this. Tablets or notebooks. Now that's a little bit larger than a phone, but smaller than a desktop or laptop. And here I have a photo of somebody using a tablet, or it's called a notebook. And again, Apple differentiates themselves by calling, and they call theirs an iPad. That's the Apple product. Everybody else, we just call it a tablet or a notebook. Digital personal assistants have become very popular in the past 5-10 years or so. Apple has their product. It's called Siri. Google Assistant. Amazon puts out Alexa, and I think there are other products as well. There's an Echo and maybe a Dot that I've heard of that some companies put out. Basically, you speak to it and it recognizes your voice and it takes your voice commands. For example, you could ask Siri or Alexa, play this song for me, play the Star Spangled Banner. Turn the sound down, turn the sound up, order me a pizza. These are things that you can ask your digital personal assistant to do. You speak to it, it can give you information. What's the weather today? What time is my flight leaving? Things like that. We have wearable devices. Wearable devices. These are things you can wear on your body, much like a phone. Apple has an Apple Watch, and it's basically a smartphone, very small smartphone that you can wear on your wrist. And it kind of looks like one. I have a photo of one there. There's other types of wearable devices. For example, you may have heard of a Fitbit. And there's a picture of a Fitbit there, and that is, as the name implies, mostly a fitness tracker. So depending on the device you get, for example, the Apple Watch, I believe, has fitness trackers and even some medical trackers like blood pressure and heart rate already embedded in it. Some are more limited, like the Fitbit is just for fitness. So again, all types of products out there pretty much doing whatever you need them to do in terms of being a portable computer on the run. So for caregivers, the current technology that's commonly used, The intention of using technology for caregiving is to increase caregiver health and wellness and decrease the complexity of caregiver tasks. Now, the way that technology can do that is providing support or information for caregivers, increase access to clinicians, simplify personal tasks such as medication tracking or charting, maybe noting blood pressure times, and can increase care recipient safety. Now, the types of caregiver technology that's most often used right now, fall detection. You know, the original product, I think, was a life alert, and the tag was, I've fallen and I can't get up. This is very popular for caregivers, the fall detection. You have the care recipient wear a pendant or a watch type device that senses if the person falls, or could be voice activated if the person needs help. They can speak to it. And basically this sends a notification. It's voice activated or motion activated and will send a notification to someone somewhere. Also, the use of in-home monitors and sensors that may be mounted on the walls. Could be just a baby monitor, or it could be more of a motion sensor or a pressure sensor even that can sense when somebody sits on a chair, or a motion sensor that can sense when somebody crosses a beam, or if light changes, or if appliances have been used or not. And again, you can get alarms and notifications. You can be connected with 911, pretty much whatever you need. Also very popular are physical monitoring devices, and mostly this uses GPS technology. GPS can be embedded in pretty much anything. We see here they're available in insoles. You can slide them into care recipient shoes if they're a wanderer. Again, in the watches. And this is a product here. I've got two photos here of something called a tile. And this is strictly just a GPS device that you can slide into anything, like your wallet, or attach it to your keys. And then you can always track where that item is. You can put this in your luggage. You can put this in your child's backpack. You can put this anywhere and track the location of that tile. Telehealth has become extremely popular with the advent of the COVID virus. We've been relying on telecommunications technology quite heavily. Telehealth can be delivered through a smartphone, computer, a tablet. It can take advantage of software applications such as FaceTime, Skype, or proprietary software. Given HIPAA, that HIPAA regulations are adhered to, all of these things can be used, but you have to be aware of HIPAA and privacy and whatnot. And as of now, there's a lot of proprietary software that is trying to fill the gaps in telehealth technology. Now, I mentioned that coronavirus had quite an impact on telehealth regulations, and one of the biggest impacts was relaxing the regulations and restrictions on telehealth. For example, new patients can be seen over telehealth, which was not the case. You used to have to go to a doctor's office to be seen the first time. The types of patients who can be seen and for what types of conditions has been expanded, and the types of devices that can be used for telehealth has also been expanded. Something else that's happened as part of the Coronavirus Preparedness and Response Supplemental Appropriations Act is there's been $29 million per year for the next 4 years set aside to expand telehealth national infrastructure. So there's going to be a lot more expansion and use of telehealth going forward. So that was some common technology that we have been using. I want to look now at some emerging medical technology, and I'm going to read you this blurb from a paper that I read. Emerging platforms will permit the analysis of patterns in patient-generated data extracted from wearables and IoT-connected devices, alerting the caregiver to changes in a care recipient's health status, and automatically providing connection to appropriate resources and to members of the healthcare team. And to that I say, what? What does that mean? Well, basically it means very detailed remote patient monitoring, meaning that we're going to be monitoring your health, collecting all your data about your health status without you even being in the office. So remote patient monitoring, seeing what's going on with you from a distance. And again, this remote patient monitoring, it integrates data from multiple sources. For example, you may be wearing sensors or monitors or have them in the home, and you may be talking to your doctor on your device. And maybe you're looking through virtual reality glasses because your doctor needs to ask you specific questions or teach you how to do something. Again, remote patient monitoring, it's going to rely on advanced data analytics, and this is key. We've used basic analytics, and now we're moving into predictive or advanced analytics. And talk a little bit more about this. Basic analytics, it provides a summary of your data. For example, the current Apple smartwatch will collect blood pressure or your heart rate, and it may give you a summary of that data from the past week. But advanced analytics, it's going to look for a trend in that data in order to predict the future. So an advanced analytics smartwatch, if it sees your BP getting a little too high or getting a little too low, or maybe even just detects a change that should be acknowledged and addressed, it's going to be able to notice that change and notify you and say, hey, your BP's been high for 2 days in a row, you know, check this. It's going to notify you. It might even be able to say, well, your calorie intake went up, or, you know, depending on how smart and how sensitive and how much we can crunch it. You get the idea. You're pulling in all this detail and then connecting to your provider, and also using advanced analytics to notify you if you need help or if there's some kind of a problem. So these are the types of emerging medical technology that's coming out. Wearable devices and sensors. This is also referred to as the Internet of Things, or IoT, and that's just a general kind of a term or a statement that says everything that's out there that's being invented, because technology is moving so fast and there are so many products coming out that it is just kind of referred to as the Internet of Things, meaning all those things out there that are being invented. And that right now is a good way to talk about wearable devices and sensors, because the market is just exploding. Voice technology, telehealth technology, mobility and autonomous vehicles, assistive technologies, personally assistive technologies, virtual and augmented mixed reality, financial technologies, and also machine intelligence or artificial intelligence. These are areas of emerging medical technology. And I'm going to talk about each of these in turn. So first, the wearable devices and the Internet of Things. The benefit of this is it gives you real time, and it can collect long-term data, which is very powerful for predictive analysis. The norms that we use to test, let's say if you get a lab test or you give your blood pressure to your doctor, they're going to maybe compare it to standards, national standards. But if you've collected your own data for 5 years, then you've got your own baseline. It can be more individually tailored to you. So that's the benefit of the wearable devices. The types of data that can be collected: motion, temperature, blood pressure, heart rate, sound, light, all these things can be collected. And they've already given rise, I've noticed there are already health monitoring services out there that they are putting together platforms to collect all this data and then present it to your doctor for you, or present you with some kind of feedback. So companies are already trying to put together some kind of service that provides you with an Internet of Things and the necessary devices to monitor your health constantly 24 hours a day and provide you with feedback. Voice technology. The benefits of this is it's low cost. It's already commercially available through Siri and Alexa. We have the technology. If we pair this with artificial intelligence, natural language processing and speech recognition, which it kind of already uses, these things combined, it's going to make it a very powerful tool for understanding spoken requests and commands from caregivers or care recipients. It's going to be able to offer alerts and answers and hopefully prompt behavioral activity like, hey, take a medication or don't take that medication, something like that. Telehealth. We talked a little bit about the expansion of telehealth's capabilities now with the advent of COVID, but you know, telehealth has actually been around since the 1950s. And we're seeing now that it really has some significant benefits. And the potential expansions or improvements, which I already really mentioned, combining telehealth with remote monitoring and virtual reality. It's going to give caregivers access to physicians, mental health, coaching, or training. That's the idea. Technology that affects mobility or autonomous vehicles. It's a lot of different types of mobility or autonomous vehicles that technology can affect right now. Uber or Lyft, those are not really new technologies, but they're kind of new. Self-driving vehicles. We might be able to have things delivered to us that way or through drones. Like here, I think that somebody's medication or maybe a sample is going to a lab there, or maybe somebody's medication is being delivered to their home. And the idea is to increase patient access to care and resources and increase the care and resources that can be delivered to the patient. Personally assistive technologies. These are designed to support functional limitations that people may have in vision, hearing, or mobility. For example, smart glasses. People with vision impairments might be able to put on a pair of smart glasses and go for a walk and not be encumbered by as many of their impairments, or have support for their impairments within the glasses somehow that allows them to move about their environment safely. Hearing aids. Apparently the technology is rapidly improving so that the quality is a lot better and the cost is coming down. Smartphone software to address specific disabilities. Smartphones are already being designed for speech recognition and narration to interact with people who have disabilities, maybe people who are blind or have hearing limitations, or even artificial intelligence to be able to narrate what is on the screen if that's needed. Virtual reality. And that's been around for a while too, but not used very much for caregiving. What it basically is viewing things in 3 dimensions or 3D. And here we have a photo with somebody using virtual reality glasses. For caregiving, what they really want to use the virtual reality for is to provide care or treatment in the home. To train caregivers to provide care or treatment in the home, and also to respond to emergencies. So you could have your glasses on, your virtual reality glasses on, and be on the phone or telehealth with a trainer, maybe a clinician, a nurse practitioner who's telling you how to dress a wound, or how to deal with some behavioral problems. And maybe through those virtual glasses, you're actually seeing what they're talking about. So quite some exciting changes there. Financial technologies. And basically, these are expanding to allow for closer account monitoring, because older adults and care recipients are going to be very vulnerable to fraud. So again, it's really just getting more detail, more security around finances, and possibly giving caregivers access. Artificial intelligence or machine intelligence. What this is artificial intelligence is when machines perform functions that, if done by a person, would be considered to require intelligence, such as learning and problem solving. Very exciting stuff going on, especially with robotics. And you can see some examples here of robots involved in healthcare. This one actually picks the patient up and takes the patient and delivers it somewhere else. And this robotics has to be very sensitive to the person themselves and their body and their mechanics and whatnot. So that's kind of amazing. This machine here may respond to how the patient's muscles are working and then adjust its tension and height and speed accordingly. So it's responding to what the patient is doing. And this robot here looks like maybe it's interacting with these folks. Maybe it's playing some music or something, or telling jokes, but they sure are enjoying its company. I know that one time recently I was at a hotel and I called the front desk And I was quite surprised when a robot showed up at my door with some extra towels or whatever it was that I had asked for. But robotics are very popular everywhere. So this is an area I think that's very exciting for caregivers. And some examples. So the current software. Let's say we have an activity monitoring device. Somebody's wearing a pendant. And currently this pendant might send a notification if the senior's not out of bed by a predetermined time in the morning. But with artificial intelligence, the device may be able to know that the senior did not go to bed until late. And when that happens, she typically stays in bed later. So there is no problem with that staying in bed in the morning. Another example, wandering, a dementia patient. Let's say a senior's activity tracker notes he's left the house when he wasn't scheduled to do so, and that would provide a notification as programmed into the technology. But artificial intelligence might be able to observe that the senior's best friend came to the home for an unplanned visit, and as typically happens when he visits, they went for a walk. So you can see that artificial intelligence, again, is taking more data and working with it a little differently. It's like it's thinking. Just like everything, there are challenges to emerging technologies. As often the case with technology, there are challenges based on equity, inclusion, access, have to do with socioeconomic status and technological literacy. Many older adults are not necessarily comfortable with interacting with technology because it is so new and different. And that's very understandable. There's also ethical concerns, privacy and security. You know, how much information do you want to share and with who? Who are we sharing it with? Who at this company is collecting all my data and who's analyzing it? And what about informed consent? You know, now we have processes where we give informed consent at specific points in time. Let's say we go into a hospital for a procedure, we'll be signing consent forms when we sign in, or at some point before we take that specific treatment or procedure. But what if you're being constantly monitored? What are you consenting to? And how do you give consent? So these are all issues that need to be considered. And I'm sure there's many more. Yes, more challenges. Interoperability and lack of standards. This is challenging now because everybody's creating all these things, the Internet of Things, right? And all the devices and whatnot, it's exploding. But a lot of things are being created in individual, as we say, silos. You know, people aren't necessarily talking together because all these systems are going to have to work together and talk to each other seamlessly, or it won't work. We're going to need standard functioning. We're going to need standardized parts, standard outputs for measurement, standard outputs just so we can know that things are working or not. We just need standardization. And design and engineering. The engineers are fantastic, but they lack user input. You know, they're not sitting there with the user right there testing out what they're designing. So there is some gap between the user and the engineer, the designer. And again, that will affect operations and functionality. You know, how do I use this and why do I need it? You know, when you're designing things, usability and functionality can be kind of obscure. So to summarize, emerging medical technology for caregivers, basically the goals are to enhance data collection and predictive analysis, combine this with remote clinical interaction, and provide continuous, individualized, immediate healthcare. And that's all I've got. Are there any questions or comments?
Michelle, do you know if the expansion of the telehealth, if that's going to include like broadband services or tablets themselves?
I know that the restrictions on devices have been relaxed, and I believe that tablets are okay. I'm not sure about the broadband, but I believe that phones and pretty much all devices have been opened up for use.
Are there, so is it like specific health plans that are doing it? Like say Kaiser has their own platform that they use and they can,
Honestly, I can just tell you from my personal experience that each healthcare provider has had their own platform. Each company has had their own platform. And there are companies out there that are developing platforms. That's all they do is develop platforms. Like Argus Medical. That's one.
where was that hotel where you had the robot deliver?
That was down in San Diego, actually. It was just like a Marriott or something, a business. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And
Yeah.
that was a few years ago, actually.
Yeah. And I read about a few years ago about possibly robots being used in like caregiver tasks and stuff. And personally, I mean, I think it's a great idea. As
So do
far as
I.
they have all the safety factors in place.
Yeah, you could program it to do all kinds of things. You could even program them just to do meal prep and housekeeping if that's what you need.
Yeah.
You know, personal robotics I don't think are very far away, and it would be just life-changing for caregivers.
Right. Yeah, and plus all the like the artificial intelligence and machine learning right now, it's moving much faster than I think people realize. I mean, they're predicting these things in autonomous cars too. I mean, these things are going to become way more common like within the next 5 years. It'll be pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see. And then there's a lot of talk now about changing long-term care, like especially with all the deaths with the pandemic and older adults in skilled nursing and stuff. So I'm wondering if more technology will be used in that aspect.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, there's applications for technology everywhere we look. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
It is very exciting.
yeah. There was just a news yesterday where some of the restaurants are starting to bring in robotics with the pandemic, keeping it more safe for both the public and the employees.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So they're starting to bring in more robotics
Interesting.
into the fields. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing with the pandemic too. It's speeding everything up. It's the
Yes.
direction we were headed anyway, but it's almost like it's critical now that these things need to be put into place. So
Yeah. Fortunately, we had so many ready to go, like the telehealth.
yeah, I know. And the only thing right now is kind of with that speed, because I think it was progressing at a slower pace because it was trying to be inclusive of everybody, you know. And the problem now with them trying to speed everything up even quicker is those people are kind of being left behind who don't have those technology abilities or the broadband or Wi-Fi or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
People in the rural areas and everything. So they're going to have to catch up pretty fast. That's the only problem. But I like how you broke everything down into very, very simple terms and, you know, defining things in the beginning. Because, I mean, as you were talking about it, I'm like, wow, these are things we really don't think about, you know. But as people get older and they're not as familiar with these things, it's like those are things that are very educational for them. And they appreciate little details like that being explained. So as you were talking, I was thinking this is going to be a great presentation to have on our webpage for people to access later on. Even as St. Barnabas is planning on implementing all of the like virtual education and improving on the technology and things, this will be a good presentation for everybody to reference to when they are starting to learn about the technology. So
Yeah. Talking to our clients, it's, you know, there's some that are really, you know, they're at risk of falling behind because they're not as familiar with the technology, and we, you know, we work with them and we do what we can, but I think that having, you know, that common information that I gave in the beginning, we often think it's silly that we don't need to go over it. But I think that if you miss that early on and you don't understand some of that basic stuff, you're going to be so intimidated and not even want to enter into a conversation about smartphones or things if you don't even understand what a laptop is. So I think that with older adults, it's important, like you said, Amy, to really flesh it out and talk about every single detail of these things.
Yeah, and I think also the accessibility for them, some of the seniors, and I think that's also one of the problems why they don't use the technology to their advantage.
What do you mean by accessibility? Do you mean actually physically working with the device itself, or?
No, like the internet, having access to internet at their homes. I know a few of my clients can't afford to pay for the internet, so having a plan that works for them. Usually some of the services are not available in their areas.
Socioeconomic status has always been an issue, and it will continue to be. And yeah, the differences are just going to be stark, you know, if those people are left behind. So
yeah.
Well, thank you very much for attending. I appreciate your comments and your attention. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop recording and end the presentation. And I just need to find that stop button.
Find it.